When you think of the late 90s, what comes to mind? Maybe pop culture with R&B groups, extreme sports, hip-hop, and video games? Yeah, me too. Nintendo had come out with their N64 in 96, and Sony was a certified household name with their PlayStation. Sega, on the other hand, y'all already know the story. Fought against Nintendo during the 16-bit console wars, was flying high with the Sonic series until 3D, had mixed success on the Saturn, so on and so forth. The decisions that were made with the Saturn along with the add-ons like the 32X for the Genesis had the people's faith in Sega go low real fast. So they cooked up a little console called the Dreamcast, hoping that it'd save them. It would release in Japan on November 27th in 1998, while the US would get it on September 9th of the next year, and Europeans got it a month later on October 14th.
Man, stay off the light feed!
My bad.
This console was hella underrated but very important in gaming history. Helped pave the way for online play, had high quality arcade ports, and had a great marketing push with original games to boot. And because of this, the Dreamcast will be considered one of, if not the most innovative console in the world, even after it got discontinued in 2001, unfortunately.
We fall down, but we get up. We fall down.
That's a damn shame.
It's one of my favorite gaming consoles out of those reasons. And another would be the games you could play on it. The Sonic Adventure Duology, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Power Stone, Crazy Taxi, Space Channel 5, Choo Choo Rocket, Street Fighter 3rd Strike. These development teams were cooking, bro. But there was one game from this library that, to this day, still stands the test of time, and whose funky style still resonates with me and many others. That game will be a little classic you might have heard around called Jit Grind. Nah. It was most definitely
Jet Set Radio!
This game is my absolute favorite one that Sega ever put out. I played it so much to never forget what goes on in it. I always enjoy hearing people talk about the game in the visual and the musical sense, which is pretty cool, don't get me wrong, but I do want to go ahead and offer another perspective that I don't really think a lot of people pick up on. This is what makes JSR bold. Alright, so you might be wondering, yo, the fuck is a Jet Set Radio?
Get ready for a revolution of sound and a revival of soul. You good little boys and girls out there better turn down that dial, cause this is Jet Set Radio!
It was a semi-action adventure, semi-platforming video game that was developed by a studio called Smilebit and then released by Sega. The game will come out in Japan first on June 29th of 2000, and today marks 25 years of that shit. But by that time, nothing had ever come out before with this type of graphics and characters, which amazed a lot of people. It got good scores for it too originally, even from IGN. The game will later grind its way to America under the name of Jet Grind Radio on Halloween later that same year. You're greeted with the cutscene from a certain loud-talking DJ who tells you the info on the streets after the boot up. He then expands on the small lore of Tokyo Talk, a fictionalized version of Tokyo, Japan along with the Rudies. Group's young street punks who roll around in rollerblades powered through fictional Netrium batteries. But according to this dude, the Rudy culture is being affected by the villainous Captain Onishima, who is one of the reasons why the Rudies get beaten down in the streets. The other reason besides the police are because of laws created by the government and the Rokaku, a business conglomerate which co-founded the 21st Century Project, which was specifically created to crack down on said Rudies.
And why, you may ask?
For simply spraying graffiti, as it's their way of expressing themselves to the world. Off the bat, I love the intro for this game. Immediately you get shown what's happening with the funky music, the kind of ominous voiceover, and the little comic book style visuals really helps paint a picture of what's going on around here. You got a game where the cops are being some assets like how they are in real life, and you get to fight against them through art. You can go ahead and take my money. You later get to play as JSR's poster boy, the headphone wearing freak himself, B, mostly following the tutorial missions of the later perverse second in command Gum and the cocky tech savvy guy Korn. Once you complete everything, the GGs are formed. Going into the main protagonist and characters for a second, the GGs don't really have personality, and by that I mean personality that's directly shown in game. Most that we get are usually interpreted through the manuals and the voice clips.
Nice!
While we could infer things about certain characters like how B could be a geek or how Korn is highly intelligent, dialogue and personalities between the GGs are kept to a minimum. But despite that limited scope, it's one of the things that I feel makes JSR unique. The protagonists are technically who you make them out to be. Like, you can make all kinds of headcanons about any one of them despite the limited details we get. And compared to the other gangs in this game, the GGs are bold in their approach of policy, which is literally none. And each of them express their own character via accessories that, to the normal eyes of Tokyo Toe, might seem regular, but to the kids of Tokyo Toe are iconic. The supporting characters and the villains more or less got a similar vibe going on. For example, this old buckethead ass nigga Captain Onishima can best be described as a police captain slowly going insane. Nah, seriously though, this guy goes from chasing you with a gun to requesting lead in your system. He's out of the picture by the time a certain group pulls up, but for what he accomplishes in the story as an antagonistic villain, it's serviceable to say the least. And the police forces themselves are pretty much blank slates who beat you every single time you spray graffiti. After them, we got the rival gangs. To the west, we got the Noise Tanks, a group of tech nerds who like pirating and the ones responsible for causing a huge blackout in their district. Next up is Poison Jam in the east. They're bad guys who look like rip-off Scooby-Doo villains with a honestly banging theme. Finally, we have a newer gang trying to take the GG's turf in the south and the Love Shockers, an all-girl group who got their hearts so nice from some bad breakups and they trying to break some hearts themselves. Then, we have the absolute GOAT of the JSR series, DJ Professor K, the guy who was telling us the lore earlier. He's one of the few fully voiced characters and the only fully credited one in the game. He was portrayed by a man named Billy Brown both here and in future. In this game, K is a smooth talking wisecracking guy who runs the pirate radio station, Jet Set Radio. He gives you the details on certain situations in the game. Not only was he influenced by Super Soul, a blind DJ who was also black from the 1971 film Vanishing Point, but also a pretty good source of comedy.
This is Tokyo's guerrilla music broadcaster, Jet Set Radio. Let's go to the mailbag. A letter from Mr. Osaki asks, how do I get rid of these nasty roaches? Easy, just burn your house down.
Jet Set Radio.
Jet Set Radio. We got another letter from Osaki. He says, I burned my house down. What should I do now? How should I know, fool?
Some of the funniest shit in the game. I could go more in depth, but I do want to recommend Rising Sonic 17's video on the GG's personalities. Even though it's more based around Future than the original, he still got a great analysis on the characters, and he also got other great JSR related videos that I highly recommend you check out. With that being said, how does the game control? The short answer is aight. It's aight.
This is Onishima. I'm sending in the tanks. I don't care what happens. Just get those parts.
Gameplay time. You control the characters by using the left thumbstick like how you would in most games, but you gain speed using the right trigger, almost like a boost button. Despite the jankiness of the controls and overall movement, you can pull off amazing tricks to gain points. However, this is a secondary method. The first and the most prominent is graffiti, which JSR handles with the arcade style method. When you see a red or green arrow around the stage, you'll be given prompts to follow the movement of the arrows with your left thumbstick. However, a simple button press of the left trigger is usually reserved for small graffiti. Red means a necessary tag, while green is optional for points and all. Now, me personally, I like the medium and large graffiti method, but it can admittedly be a pain to get perfect movements down sometimes. If you do it too fast, you'll be set back to the first pattern, and you'll have your score set down a notch. If you do it too slow, you'll be able to gain accuracy, but you include the risk of having the pigs run after your ass. My recommendation for newer players is to get used to how the graffiti mechanics work, and once you figure out the maps, prioritize certain tags so that you could beat the levels more quickly. And with the fun of graffiti comes the police. They'll be a pain at first to go through, but They later evolved to be easy fodder to deal with their methods of stopping you, like guard dogs chasing after you, so on. But then shit turns from 0 to 100 with tanks, tear gas, and helicopters shooting missiles at you. Like, these are just teenagers, my nigga. Shit.
This is Onishima. I'm sending in the parachute squad. Once they land, fill that hell on wheels with lead.
Alright, the button to activate said graffiti is mapped to the L trigger, same button used to reset the camera position, which could either be help or bother. The reason for this control scheme was because unlike other consoles at the time, the Dreamcast didn't really have a second analog thumbstick. So what most games like Sonic Adventure for example would do, they'd use the triggers to control the camera almost like free cam. Though in SA2, it snapped back every single time you moved the character, like in the speed stages and especially in the mech stages. Luckily, Jet Set's HD Remastered on Steam fixed this by adding the option to move the camera manually with a second joystick. The most tedious part that Jet Set's physics can offer is with the half pipes. Sometimes it feels like it works when it wants to though. I don't know if that's me messing up because I got big ass hands and fingers, or if it's the game itself. But personally, it wasn't really that huge of an issue that plagued me with the whole replaying experience. Oh yeah, all of this is time, mind you. And if you complete a stage before it's over, you get one of 6 rankings. Pedal, motor, engine, turbo, nitro, and finally, the jet rank. You could pretty much think of these as like the E to S ranks from Sonic. On a personal playthrough, the most that I would get would be like a nitro in the first few missions though. I'd get jet on the Takis tag stages and on the first Shibuya mission somehow. Overall, the gameplay is a pretty good mix of traversing through the 3 main environments the city of Tokyo has to offer. The Shibuya-cho, the city of daylight, home turf for the GGs, and the spot that the Love Shockers try to take on in the first half. Next up is Kogane-cho, the main spot of Poison Jam, the city of the sunset, and where most of the construction takes place. Also where you can find the sewers. Finally, we have Ben-ten-cho, city of the night, residence of the noise tanks, and sounds suspiciously similar to a popular Cartoon Network show, while also being pretty as fuck to look at. The total number of characters you can play as without secret ones is 10. Besides the trio of Beat, Gum, and Corn, we got Biz, Garum, Yo-Yo, Sugar, Soda, Cube, and Combo. There are optional Rudies that you can recruit and play as for a different experience, kinda. Biz, Cube, Combo, and Garum all have you copy their techniques so that you can play them similar to Gum and Corn. Sugar, Soda, and Yo-Yo though are all on lock 3 racing. You'll pretty much be able to beat Sugar's no sweat. Same with Soda. Yo-Yo's race, however, that little nigga can be fast as fuck. Guaranteed, the AI in JSR can be pretty laughable, so if you keep on moving ahead, you'll be able to beat Yo-Yo and have him as a new character to play as. Each of them got their own stats and abilities that are different from one another, which could be interpreted as a character type, some terminology that comes from a translated version of the JSR guidebook. They're basically the strength of certain abilities that the character can do, like graffiti, tricks, technique, and so on. In the main game, there's Beat, Gum, and Corn type. Beat type characters have pretty average stats for tricks and graffiti with their limit reaching 20 to 25 cans. Beat, Biz, Cube, and Combo are all considered medium tier because of this, though you could use either one of them to get a Tagger's tag to get a jet rank regardless. Next up is the Gum type. This type has characters with low stats and power, which are the overall health of the character, but really high stats and graffiti. Gum, Yo-Yo, and Sugar are considered the best characters to play as because of this, and they're the highest tier of characters you could play as in the game. But the spray patterns are more complicated, so you're gonna have to be more careful. Plus, they each got 15 cans as a drawback. Finally, we have the Corn type, which specializes in tricks and techniques more so than health or graffiti. Corn, Garum, and Soda are considered the lowest tier characters you could play as with pretty easy tags, and 30 cans being the limit for Corn and Garum, while Soda has the largest count of the regular unlockable characters being 45. Despite this, some character physics can either give you a good time like Biz, Beat, and Gum, or in the case of Combo, be heavy and sorta difficult to deal with. The design is cool though, which speaking of, we'll be right back. Damn, I can't believe I went on for this long without mentioning this game's art on the visual and music side. The shit's famous and well known for them. Alright, first off, the artwork and the character designs were helmed by series character designer Ryuta Ueda. Ueda would first start his job at Sega through the game Astal on the Saturn in 1995 with production on the intro. But besides Jet Set, he's well known for his work on the 1998 series Panzer Dragoon. Ueda would later go on to work with Smilebit, one of 6 development studios formed from Team Andromeda, Panzer Dragoon's development team during the Dreamcast years. He and another colleague, Masayoshi Kikuchi, will be on Panzer Dragoon together, designing boss battles, creating character designs, and so on. The two of them will later develop a friendship, and during the creation of Panzer Dragoon Saga, Ueda will later be making designs for what would become the character designs for the Rudies and others in the game. Quick side note, but I love the look that Ueda had created for these guys, both Final and Beta. Each of them got these, again, unique attributes from the colors to the accessories, which again are iconic. Bess has a little radio, Yo-Yo and D got their glasses, Grum has this little blue necklace, which some people think is the skull of Sonic.
Let's get down!
Sugar got them big old goggles, Gum's helmet, Corn's beanie, totally sick. Without him, it's like Mario or Sonic without no mustache and no spikes or the boots. Back to the story, Kikuchi saw them and he really wanted to make something out of it. Luckily for the both of them, the development environment at Sega was implementing innovation, creativity, and ideas into each studio at the time. The two would eventually be joined by a man named Kazuki Hososawa, who would later become the lead graphic designer. I guess in a way, these three are kind of like the Naoto Oshima, Yuji Naka, and the Hirokazu Yasuhara of JSO's development, if Naka wasn't an asshole, that is. The art Ueda was producing was originally going to be fitted to be more of an RPG, but that then later got scrapped and then evolved into a city concept. It had a fusion of youth culture in Japan during the late 90s, thanks to the many 25-year-olds that were on Smilebit. Speaking of, they wanted for this new project to be more youth-oriented than the other games they had developed. Some other influences came from the movie Fight Club, manga and anime, the rude boy culture in Jamaica, which is where the term Rudy originated from, by the way, Parappa the Rapper, and many more. Jet Set was also one of the first few games to pioneer the use of cell shading in video games. Cell shading, for those uninformed, means that the graphics could be shown off in a more cartoony and expressive style with black outlines from a separate model and some special shaders in the case of JSR, making it look like an animated show you could play, which again was hella impressive for the time. This shit timeless too, bruh. Everything about these low poly environments and graphics screams Dreamcast to me. If it wasn't the 2D art of the many Capcom fighting games, it was definitely the 3D models and the renders of the adventure games, Space Channel 5, Crazy Taxi, and even this game. To help complement this manga and graffiti inspired world, eventual series composer and legend in his own right, Hideki motherfucking Naganuma, will go on to compose tracks for this game. Before working at Sega, he'd go on to do DJing and bartending from 1993 to 1997. The year after this, he sent a couple of demo tapes to Sega where he'd do voice editing for a game called Shoujo Kakume Utena IKSL. They'll go on to compose for a game called Hip Hop Jock. JSR was his breakout role though, and it was thanks to this game that he'd refine his electric style and later get the chance to work on certain projects. Some of these were Jet Set Radio Future, Ollie King, Sonic Rush, Air Gear, Super Monkey Ball, and a couple of more titles under the Skank Funk name while he was working under Sega. Speaking of, after he left in 2008, he'd work on certain games like Hover, War of Brains, the Lethal League series, and Bomber Cyberpunk, which this game was an influence for. Naganuma has this distinct sound that combines Fatboy Slim, the Chemical Brothers, Prodigy, and other black musicians, whether it's a drum break, civil rights speeches, you name it. When you hear it, you know it's either him or it's something that sounds like it's straight from Jet Set Radio.
Give me a break. Give me a break.
He's definitely one of my favorite musicians to listen to from outside the game soundtrack, but he wasn't the only composer on the team. Smilebit would later hire Richard Jacques, who was the composer behind Sonic R and Pretty Blast on the Saturn. Naganumo would eventually invite the J-rock group Guitar Vader, and other underground artists like Rex hopped on the project, and their works are just as amazing as his. Take a listen.
Y'all ready to get funky?
Oh, I can see them running by the town. I can hear them all say, ba-da-ba-ba-da, do-wop, do-wop, listen to the music, do-wop, do-wop, do, do-wop, do-wop, listen to the music, do-wop, do-wop, do. Yes! Take me to the power, get out of the corner, take me to the border, I will make it as they do. I can see them run about the town, I can hear them all say, ba-da-ba-ba-da, do-wop, do-wop, listen to the music, do-wop, do-wop, do, do-wop, do-wop, listen to the music, do-wop, do-wop, do, do-wop, do-wop, listen to the music, do-wop, do-wop, do, do-wop, do-wop, listen to the music, do-wop, do-wop, ba-da-ba-ba-da.
Later releases would include Rob Zombie and the Jet Grind release, and other artists in future versions will implement their own tracks in the game as well. However, there were some unused songs that were either shown off at E3 or on a sampler disc. Switching back to the visual art side of things, a dude named Eric Hayes was also a contributor since he was responsible for some of the graffiti designs you can see in the game. There were also many other artists who contributed to the Dreamcast releases, such as Edge, Vetro, Higuchin, Ketchup, Enas, and Cheekbone. We don't know if they're the ones who made the international graffiti, but the Steam release did feature some graffiti made by fans of the series and Sega in general. My personal favorite has to be this little Sega tag that was made by Linkabell. All of these factors rose up to help define Jet Set Radio, and while there were a few development issues like character speed, 10 months of development time that Smilebit had to use to create this game would pretty much be complete. And with that, let's move back into the story. After recruiting Bess, Daryl, and Yo-Yo while defeating Poison Jam, the Noise Tanks, the Love Shockers, and getting rid of the frogs or getting Pots back after he got kidnapped, the gangs are now fallen. A little badge is shown from one of the Shockers though, and this is where the story takes a turn. Cut to chapter 2 and say,
Yeah.
to Grind City, a New York City inspired hub of levels with Bantam Street and Grind Square. By the way, Bantam is definitely the Bronx, and Grind Square is essentially Times Square. Anyways, these levels help serve as a backstory for Combo and Cube, who fled to Tokyo to in search of mutual aid from the GGs after their turf got taken over by the Golden Rhinos, an elite group that acts like a mafia gang. Which is pretty much because they are a mafia gang. Point, Combo and Cube's friend and fellow gang member ended up going missing over the Devil's contract. Now, what is the Devil's contract, you may be wondering? Well, apparently it's an old urban legend of an indie record that said to when be played could summon a demon. So the GGs quickly accept Combo and Cube into the group to prevent the Rhinos from getting all 3 pieces of the contract. Before we continue, you remember when I said that K was one of the few fully voiced and uncredited characters in game? Combo is the second one, since he could speak in the cutscenes that portray the reason why he and Cube came over to Tokyo in the first place. Let me run a couple of clips on you real quick.
Grind City, my turf. My name's Combo, and me, Cube, and Coin used to own the Bantam Street area in this city. It's a little far from Tokyo, but everyone used to stay out of our way there. Till recently, that is.
So, who provided them, you may be wondering? Like I said, we didn't get no official confirmation from Sega since JSO only confirmed DJ K, and in the case of Pods, he was only revealed to be voiced by Ueda himself a couple of years later. However, a couple of friends did do some digging, and now everyone knows that Combo was voiced by Kevin Blackton. So like Cooper fans might recognize him as these members of the Phoenix Five, and he even provided uncredited voice work for another character. The last time he'd provide voice work for the JSR series was with Future when he came back as Combo, albeit with a different take.
Yo, kid. All right. What up, kid? Bring it on.
Unfortunately, he passed away in 2017, but his contributions to this series ain't gonna be forgotten by the community. Thank you for your work, and may you rest easy, Mr. Blackton. Now, when I say that missions at this time around are through the roof in difficulty when it comes to getting a Nitro or a Jet rank, I'm not joking. Not only do you have to blaze all around Shibuya, Hogane, and Benten to reclaim your spots, but you also got to deal with car bombs at Arsonist and Shibuya, wrestling dudes who admittedly look a little goofy in Benten, and these annoying ass jetpack dudes who can also attack you in the sewers. Fuck these niggas. Along with them are Rhino members who will chase you, Rhino members with guns and snipers, so on. But eventually you get all 3 pieces. They get stolen by a brainwashed Poison Gem though, who you'll have to go to for one last Tiger's tag. Afterwards, the GGs question PJ about the record, and we later find out that it's in possession of Rokaku Goji, the mayor of Tokyo and the main villain of the Jet Set Radio series. From the 21st century project enforcing the rules and laws on beating Rudies down, to admittedly being an asshole who doesn't give a fuck about no type of freedom of expression, he's a capitalist-inspired bastard who's pretty much this world's version of the man. He wants to use the record to control not only Tokyo, but the entire world. We managed to gain access to his tower so that we could finally finish him off, but before we head over there, Jet Set Radio will get a lot of changes after it left Japan and got repackaged in the States. The reason why it was renamed from JSR to Jet Grind Radio over here was due to legal and trademark issues at the time with the term Jet Set. And by the way, if you got a keen eye and notice that I got the JPU version on me, not bad. The differences between the original version and the American release are a lot, but some of them are things like Cube getting redesigned, character challenges being reworked, new customizable graffiti inspired by Rob Zombie, the removal of a track called Benny Boy Williamson's show, which unfortunately hasn't seen the light of day since the original release, but the addition of a new track called Yappy Feet, which would unfortunately suffer the same fate as Benny Boy. Atsu and Goji would become secret playable characters. Lyric changes for About the City would pretty much be implemented started with the American version onwards.
Listen to the music. Listen to the music.
And the addition of Bantam and Grind Square, which didn't exist at all in Japan at first. Due to the change in character names, Corn, Biz, Sugar, and Soda will eventually become Tab, Mew, Piranha, and Slate over here respectively. Personally, I don't really mind the localized names. Piranha and Mew are definite favorites despite Best being Screw, which makes more sense for Icon look. As for the guys, I was already used to Corn and Soda because of Jet Set Radio Future, though it was rumored for a long time that Corn was a mistranslation of Cone. The European version would drop on November 24th later in 2000. The game would eventually be retitled back to its original Japanese name, and it was relatively similar to Grind, just with different graffiti and music being changed, which would somewhat remain the same with De La Jet Set Radio. De La was a Japanese exclusive re-release of JSR that released on New Year's in October of 2001. Jesus Christ. Anyways, it had the added benefits of the American and European versions like music from The Average Soul like Miller Ball Breakers and Yappy Feet, which is a personal favorite of mine. Man, come on, bro. I was just trying to enjoy the music. Shit.
Yo, come on, man. I can't have shit in this house.
De La removed the metal-esque rock of the rap zombie tunes, but instead added songs from Jurassic 5, Future Cast, and more, with songs like Improvise and Recipe for the Perfect Afro, respectively, from the European release, which, in my opinion, low-key fits Jet Set's musical style more. JSR would be Dreamcast exclusive until the Steam remaster dropped in 2012. It included widescreen, achievements, and an overall cleaner look with some minor issues like rendering. I would recommend it if you got the money, but unfortunately, Sega delisted that shit, along with other titles of theirs like the adventure games, Crazy Taxi, tons of the Genesis content, and even Knights, which sucks. Game systems don't last forever, and as time goes on, they gotta be archived somehow. Taking off games like this not only hurts the visibility of them, but it also limits newcomers from trying out the game for the first time if they don't have the original hardware. Don't worry, the folks who bought JSR and the other titles before December 6th still got it. Newcomers though, yeah, no luck with getting this version unless I'd advise you to do some certain shit that my lawyer told me not to repeat out loud. Despite that unfortunate circumstance, I highly recommend you check out a channel called Grayscale. They did a highly informative video on these releases and versions of Jet Set Radio that can be good help that's more detailed than I can offer in the time that I got here. Oh yeah, besides Jet Set Radio Future, which came out in 2002 on the original Xbox, there was also Jet Set Radio Advance, which was a GBA port of the original. Long story short, it is a 2-pack of ass. Do not play this shit, bro. I'm telling you. The OST got cut down to 6 seconds. The physics are more loose than both of the games combined, and
oh my, no way, bro. What? Let me see. Oh no, they're fully dressed in that. Oh nah.
yeah, that. Bringing it back to the original game for a sec, you could complete challenges when you beat the game, like Jet Crush where you repeat rival races with Beat and Shibuya, Gum and Kogane, Acorn and Ben 10. Jet Graffiti is where you can spray freely without any trouble, something that will be revisited slightly in the future. Finally, we have Jet Technique, where you can rack up points doing tricks. Post-game content is limited to these 3 options, and unless you'd want to play the story again, you're kinda stuck doing these 3 things. This is a game from 2000, and they did have to rush this shit out in like 10 months, so I imagine they couldn't get that much content into it. If you don't want to do that, you could customize your graffiti in the garage and play some of the tunes in the game. And if you had a Dreamcast back when folks thought Y2K was going to destroy everything, you know, dial-up and all, you could go online with your Dreamcast to upload your own graffiti, something that'd be adopted by the community, which kinda grew in the last couple of years. For musicians like Too Mellow coming out putting absolute bangers into the eardrums of everybody with memories of Tokyo Toe, content creators on YouTube like Force Proof, Adam Sushi, and the previously mentioned Rise Sonic 17, as well as Jet Set Radio Archives, a group dedicated to preserving JSR content like beta versions, magazines, lost media like Typing Jet, etc., etc. Some of the members in this group is why I know some of the information about Jet Set Radio that I do now. All of these people, along with other Rudies over on Tumblr, YouTube, and other social media, keep the spirit and the soul of Jet Set Radio alive. Even with Sega initially turning down things like Jet Set Wii or JSR Evolution, the community banded together creating tons of cool fan art, fan fiction, and even certain sites got a ton of praise despite its creator being a real piece of shit. Disregarding that, the JSR community always did find a way to spread positivity through this game. And thanks for everything that y'all do. Personally, I believe that community is one of the central things about Jet Set Radio and it being a core part of his DNA. Through the GG, the regular folks at Tokyo Toe, the rival gangs, and even the police in a way. It's a subtle thing I enjoy about the game, and now that we get in new JSR games after 22 years, I'm hoping that the folks who end up playing these get that same thrill I and others had playing these games, whether it was through the original or Jet Set Radio feature. Speaking of, let's flip the wraps on this story. Goji, or DJ Play as he now calls himself, has gotten the Devil's Contract, which he not only plays the music from, but also manages to spawn the boss theme, Grace and Glory by Hideki Naganuma, which admittedly is a pretty wicked track. Take a listen. Funky ass music. It fits perfectly with the fire breathing Rhino Demon trying to stop your ass in your tracks. The environment is so cool here. Like, the environment of Tokyo Toe feeling all spooky. The dancing Rhino ladies as they watch you frantically trying to run around the stage, spraying each one of the 4 spots, and the mad lad Goji just vibing to the destruction of your hometown and your turf. It gives off this surrealist nature and energy that I really can't get enough of. This fight between artistic soul and corporate soul helps explore that theme a little bit. At least it does for me. But once you destroy the demon, there's a little opening to spray Goji, and when you do that, he falls down. R.I.P. Yeah, R.I.P. Yeah, R.I.P. Yeah, R.I.P. And we get a monologue from Combo, or DJ K if you played the original version, which pretty much says that Goji was consumed by his own greed and the demons and his wealth, to the point that it caused him to believe in hoaxes and urban legends. But we literally just saw a demon. You really expect us to believe that was an urban legend? Yeah, right. Anyways, depending on who you're listening to, you kind of get a little exposition from Combo talking about how Coin got himself involved with the Rokaku and Golden Rhino schemes and ended up paying a steep price. Now, I ain't saying that the dude ended up dying, but considering that this is a game where cops are involved, yeah, that's the base point. On a lighter note, the 2 updaters on the state of the other rival games were accompanying teams film doing a medley and Naganuma tracks. Once you Professor K say there's no such thing as DN, we then get the end of Jet Set Radio, for now at least. You remember that little question that I asked earlier? You know, when niggas Jet Set Radio bold? I know a lot of people got their own definitions of it, but I believe that what makes Jet Set Radio bold is its ability to communicate its subtle themes to the player if they're paying attention to the story, and influences people to come up with their own unique ideas. Not only for that, they also had a push to fight for creativity, innovation, and passion, something that I believe Kikuchi and Ueda were both striving to create. All of that to me is part of what Jet Set Radio represents. A game heavy on the theme of rebellion and fighting against brutality and oppression against the police and the law, while fighting for the freedom of expression and speech. I know it's not that huge of a story, and you know, some people might disagree with what I'm saying, which is fine. Regardless of that, the media we all consume, whether it's video games, movies, cartoons, shows, anime, books, whatever it is, it almost always has a hidden message or a shown subtle truth in it.
Let's look at the...
Damn, this was probably like the longest video I've ever done on this thing, and it's kind of the first time I'm doing something like this with a mic. Jet Set Radio is something that means a lot to me, and I wanted to share my own thoughts on it since I haven't really seen that much review and analysis, like videos you can look up on YouTube. Plus, it's the 25th anniversary. I had to do something. From the community to the people who make a fan art and music, helping to keep the heart of Tokyo Toe pumping out with fresh art and funky fresh beats, thanks for doing so. I might consider doing more stuff like this in the future with other games, but I don't really know for yet. I have to wait and see where the future finna take me, you know? And with that, thanks for watching this, and I'll see you around again like Ronan. Peace.